Hello, welcome to Study Permit Application and what you need to know as an international student. My name is Shanna Craig. I'm an international student advisor here at Western International. Just before we get started, I want to acknowledge the land that Western is situated on. So Western University is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Luna-Wapek, and the Chongton people. These lands are connected with the London Township and Somber Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. Just to remind you to save the date for International Student Orientation. Orientation will start just before your studies start in the fall. Be sure to come by the Welcome Center. It'll be your first stop on campus where you'll receive a lot of information about the resources on campus and how we can help you during your studies here. Webinars will be available for new students throughout September to ensure that your start is strong in your first term, as well as plenty of in-person social events where you'll have the opportunity to meet new students as well as returning students and staff, so you can start building your network here in Canada. Check your emails, your personal email, as well as your UWO email for more details as the summer progresses and gets closer to the start of your studies. All right, so we have a full agenda to speak about the study permit application. We'll be talking about the Provincial Attestation Letter, also known as PAL, what it looks like to apply for a study permit outside of Canada, as well as applying for a study permit extension while you're here in Canada. We'll talk about changing DLIs and what that looks like in your IRCC secure account, your responsibilities as a study permit holder, as well as working in Canada. Please note that information that is shared today in this presentation is live as of March 2025. Immigration is ever changing. Regulations and policies are always updating. So be sure to check the IRCC website or our website for the latest information on immigration policies that might be affecting your stay here in Canada. Alrighty, so let's get started with the Provincial Attestation Letter, or the PAL. The Canadian government now requires that most new international undergraduate or graduate students submit a PAL as part of the study permit process. Unless you meet one of the exceptions, you must submit a PAL with your application. Note that your PAL must be valid when you apply, that you can't use a PAL that was issued during a previous study permit cap year. If your application does get refused or was refused, you must get a new PAL before you reapply. We'll go over the process. It's super easy. All right, so who needs a PAL and who doesn't? Undergraduate students, graduate students, also those who are here to study as a graduate diploma or a certificate, students, also visiting students studying at Western for 6 months or longer. So who may be exempt from needing a PAL? Exchange students studying under an exchange agreement between their home institution and Western, as well as those who will be applying for a study permit at the same DLI, at the same level of study as their current study permit in Canada. So note that if you're transferring from a different DLI, either high school or another post-secondary, say you're a transferring student, or you might be changing from an undergrad to a graduate level, you may be required to submit a PAL for your new study or submit a new study permit application. Already, as I mentioned, getting a PAL is super simple. Accept your offer of admission to your undergraduate program. You will pay your tuition deposit, as well as then complete the PAL request form in your Choose Western offer portal. Once that confirmation has been received, the Office of the Registrar will begin processing and issuing you your PAL. Alrighty, so once you are completed your PAL request as part of your documents required for your study permits, you're going to start the study permit process. So we recommend applying for your study permit as soon as you can. Although you might have a conditional offer from Western, you can still apply for your study permit. It's important that you apply for it as soon as possible because processing times from the country you reside in might be a little bit longer than you might be expecting. So plus it takes some time to retrieve all the required documents. So get on applying for that study permit, and IRC will do the rest in terms of timelines. So what is a study permit? It is a document issued by IRCC that allows foreign nationals to study at the DLI, or the designated learning institution, specifically in Canada. So most foreign nationals need a study permit to study in Canada. Make sure you have all your documents ready before you apply, and we recommend that you apply before you travel to Canada. All right, so there is a difference between a study permit and a visa. It is not your entry document. A study permit allows the activity of studying to be had while you're here in Canada, while a visa allows you to enter and re-enter Canada. So there are two different things, and we'll talk about the difference in the next couple of slides. So be aware that your study permit doesn't necessarily permit you to enter Canada, and you will be issued one when you do arrive. All right, so what does it look like to apply for a study permit? You apply online. So you go to ircc.canada.ca and select on the sign into your IRCC account. From there, you can sign in either through your GC key if you have one, or sign in partner if you have a Canadian bank account, and you're going to select study permit. And once you complete your questionnaire for your country of residence, the required documents will then be highlighted to you. So be sure that you complete, as you see there, the IMM 1294. That's a new study permit application. Answer all those questions required on the form. Make sure your information is as correct as possible. Also, you'll see the supporting documents. A PAL is required, a letter of acceptance, which you already have. Include a picture of your passport and any other documents that's required of you. Alrighty, and then as you can see at the bottom there are study permit fees as well as your biometric fees. Pay those fees online, and then we'll follow the next steps. All right, so what are the applications? What are the documents that are required for your application? Like I mentioned earlier, an acceptance letter, which you already have. Be sure to include that. If there are conditions on your acceptance, like it might be a language or it might be a transcript that you're waiting on, apply anyways. And once you clear your conditions, you can update your application on the IRCC webpage as a web form. Alrighty, so also include your PAL as we talked about earlier. So when it comes to financial resources, it is very important that you clearly state your proof of funds. Indicate that you're able to pay for your first year tuition as well as living expenses. Up to $20,635 is a minimum for you to prove that you can support yourself while you're here studying. So you can also provide a funds from a Canadian bank account or a GIC from a Canadian financial institution. If you are going to be receiving financial support from a family member, or if a school will be funding your education, be sure to indicate that clearly as a document that you have access to these funds to support your studies here. We recommend that you present all your documents clearly, as anything unclear can be grounds for refusal of your application. Alrighty, some of you might be required to complete a medical exam depending on your eligibility questionnaire. So be sure that when you are going through the beginning of the IRCC account, that you select the country where you reside, and it'll indicate if a medical is required. All of you, if you don't already have it, will be required to submit a biometrics. Instructions will also then be given to you once your application gets approved. Alrighty, so it's very clear that, or very important that you check your visa office instructions. Depending on the country that you'll be applying from, there might be some different requirements of you as you go through your application. All right, so say you've already finished your application and it's looking good for IRCC, you will be receiving a letter of introduction. This is not your study permit. This is an invitation for you to continue the process of your study permit application. There will be information on how to mail your passport out for TRV stamping or visa stamping. And then, so let's see. So a message, so how you'll receive this letter of introduction, a message will appear in your IRCC secure account to say, hello, we liked your application. Here are the next steps. You will travel with this letter of introduction as well as your passport and any other required documents, whether you're landing by land or if you're traveling by air and landing at an airport. This is the document you'll be traveling with. Once you arrive at your port of entry, the CBSA officer there will issue your study permit. So this is what a study permit looks like. It's colored, it's one page, it's very official. This study permit allows you to stay as well as study in Canada. And you'll see your issue date as well as expiry date on that as well. I know your travels might be far, it might be short, but if you're on a long travel route from your home country to Canada, you may be tired, you may be jet lagged and just exhausted from travel alone. Take your time with the CBSA officer, read over your study permit, ensure that the correct spelling is there, ensure that the correct dates and any conditions that you may be eligible for are all printed on there. Just make sure that there aren't any mistakes. If there are mistakes that you find out later, say you've already been in Canada, you're already out of the airport, you'll have to apply for an amendment or change of conditions, and that can take some time to actually get issued a new study permit. So while you're already in line speaking to a CBSA officer and they hand you your study permit, be sure to double check all the information on there. Alrighty, so on your study permit, it will have some conditions on there that allows you to work on or off campus. Normally, the issue period for a study permit is 90 days after your academic program ends. This gives you time to determine on what you want to do with your plans once you graduate. You may want to apply for grad school or you may want to apply to work and stay longer in Canada. So this keeps you valid for an extra 90 days. As it says there, review the information on the permit before you leave the border officer. If you do need to stay longer and extend your studies, you can apply for an extension from within Canada. Alrighty, as I mentioned earlier, you may be eligible to either apply for an ETA or a TRV. There's a picture there of what a TRV may look like. This is the official stamp that will be included in your passport, stamped in your passport, and you'll get an invitation to apply for a TRV once your study permit gets approved. All right, so this is the document that allows you to enter and re-enter Canada. It normally does expire the same day as your study permit. So once you are, you decide you want to stay in Canada longer and you're renewing your study permit, you can also renew your your TRV, sorry, at the same time. Some of you may be traveling from some visa exempt countries and you are able and eligible to apply for an ETA. It's a cheaper and faster way to apply for that entry document, and it's valid for up to 5 years. So the TRV is $100 form, and the ETA is $7. So just remember that your study permit is an official paper document that allows you to study, while a travel visa is the stamp in your passport or a sticker in your passport that allows you to enter and re-enter Canada. Alrighty, so if you're applying for a study permit within Canada, you need to make sure that you're meeting these conditions here. Perhaps you're a high school student and you've already have a valid study permit and you're looking to start your studies at a post-secondary level at Western, you will need to apply for a new study permit. In order to do that, you need to make sure that you're eligible with your current study permit, or maybe you already have a work permit. Your spouse, your common law partner, or parent has a valid study permit. This includes dependents or common laws. You're either an exchange student or you're a visiting student, or you're here to complete a short-term course or study program required to be accepted at a DLI. So that might be a language prerequisite program. If you want to know if you're eligible or if there are other criteria to meet to apply for a study permit within Canada, be sure to check out IRCC's website. Alrighty, so if you're looking to extend your stay in Canada as a student, it is best that you apply while you have a valid study permit. So apply before your study permit expires. Once you receive your study permit, we highly recommend you put that special magic expiry date in your phone calendar, some sort of reminder to renew it, or at least to be aware of the date, should you not overstay or stay unauthorized here in Canada. So, check your passport date as well, your expiry date. It must be valid at the time of application. If your passport is expiring soon or if there's a short expiry date, it may limit your time to apply. You can apply online for a study permit extension within Canada anyways. There are additional documents, request letters, or anything else that you'll see in your required documents as you go through your account there. Once you apply with a valid study permit, you will be under what is called maintained status. So what that means is you can continue to study and work under the same conditions as your current study permit. So this only allows, you're only eligible for maintained status if you apply for your study permit before it expires. All right. If you plan to travel, you may lose your maintained status, and you may need to stop studying as well. So, if you're unsure of that, or if your situation looks a little different as you progress through your studies, be sure to come to our office and get the latest immigration regulations to ensure that you stay safe and within validity for your study permit. Alrighty. Different from your study permit extension will actually be mailed to you. You don't have to go to an airport or a port of entry for that. So it will be mailed to you the address that you indicate in your study permit extension application. All right, so we talked about changing DLIs. As of last fall in November, you must be enrolled at the DLI that's named on your study permit. If you were here prior to this change, you may have already had a study permit that just said designated learning institution, and not necessarily specifying the school that you are studying at. New study permits will be required to have that number. So that being said, if you are changing institutions, that study permit needs to be valid for that specific DLI. And you may not begin your studies at Western until you receive the study permit that is issued for specifically Western University. So if your study permit application is still in progress, you can change your DLI by submitting a new LOA or a letter of acceptance and a PAL if needed using the IRCC web form. If you're changing a DLI from outside of Canada, your study permit has been approved and you change your DLI, you must submit a new study permit application with your new LOA and a new PAL, and also pay the fees for that new application. If you're changing DLIs from inside Canada, say, like I said earlier, transferring from high school to post-secondary, you still will need a new study permit application as well, or by applying for an extension, and you will be required to submit a PAL. Alrighty, so international students, your responsibilities as a study permit holder, be sure that if you are studying for any program for 6 months or longer, that you have a valid study permit. You can start studying or you can be in studies if your program is 6 months or shorter. Those are for exemptions for exchange students. You must be actively pursuing your program of study. So what that means is remaining enrolled and making reasonable and timely progress towards completing your program. You do not need to notify IRCC if you change programs at the same DLI. However, be sure that your study permit stays within the same DLI, and know that DLIs are required to report on student statuses to IRCC on an annual basis. So be sure that you comply with the conditions on your study permit. What that means is, your working hours are within the eligible hours that you are allotted. So, on campus, unlimited hours, and off campus, 24 hours. Off campus employment is allowed for programs that are 6 months or longer, or it may lead to a degree, a diploma. Alrighty, so what does working on campus look like without a work permit? As I mentioned earlier, you do have an unlimited number of hours from an immigration perspective. You remain full-time at the DLI, unless in your last term of studies you are eligible to continue working, even if you are part-time. You must have a valid study permit because you're working under the conditions of your study permit, and you have something called a social insurance number, which is called the SIN. The SIN you're able to apply for during orientation. Service Canada will be visiting our office and offering two clinics. Or if you're unable to come during those times, you're always welcome to go to Service Canada downtown. You can apply online or in person. Be sure that your study permit has that condition, remarks, and notes that indicate that you're able to accept employment on or off campus. Okay, you can only start working on or off campus once you have started your study program. If you're coming to Canada any earlier than the start of your program, some like to come 3 weeks earlier just to get settled, you're not able to work until you begin your studies. Alrighty, so it looks a little different in terms of working off campus without a work permit. During the school year, you're only able to work 24 hours per week off campus, unless it's scheduled breaks. So for undergrads, during the summer term, you are eligible to work full-time off campus, just as long as you're full-time before the break and after. So some conditions need to be met if you plan to work off campus. Ensure that you're a full-time student, unless you go part-time in your last term of studies, that you are enrolled in a post-secondary program that leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate that's at least 6 months long. You have a valid study permit, and that you have a social insurance number. Same rule apply. You are unable to start working until you actually start your studies. All right, so some of you might be in a program with a co-op work permit or a work portion. It might be called an internship, practicum placement, or experiential learning part of your studies. So in order to be eligible for a co-op work permit, the experiential learning must be an essential part of your program of study. So in order to graduate, you need to complete this co-op portion of your studies. So you will also request a letter for co-op if you have this component in your program. So you can apply at the same time as your study permit, and it's $0. So when you are going through your application, it's going to ask you for your employer. You may not know your employer just yet. Western University will be your employer, is your employer when it comes to the co-op work permit portion of your application. Know, though, that the co-op work permit cannot be used for working off campus in jobs that are not part of your program or approved by your academic department. Alrighty, so PGWP, or the post-grad work permit, is a one-time gift from IRCC for those that are eligible. You can apply for this only once you complete your program of studies. So to be eligible for this program, you've completed all program requirements. That lasted at least 8 months at the specific DLI, and most of the time, this makes you eligible for a 3-year work permit, open work permit that allows you to work in any field for 3 years, and you don't need a job offer or any job experience for those. For this work permit. So you must be continuously studying full-time with the exception of part-time in your final academic session, that you receive an official Western letter indicating that you've completed your program. It also indicates the program that you were in and how long your program was for. You would have received an official transcript, so you would have had to complete all the components of your studies and could be considered program complete. There are some where an official transcript from the DLI, like Western University's website, may be accepted, or you can just wait until you're officially complete in the system. Important that you apply for your PGWP while your study permit's still valid. So remember that 90 days I told you about regarding an extra time that you're allotted after your studies are complete. This allows you to either stay in Canada to, apply for grad school or possibly apply for a work permit. So be sure that if you're applying or you're considering applying for a PGWP, that you do so during your valid time with a valid study permit. This allows you to also continue working if that's something you're interested in. As of last fall, there is a language requirement for the PGWP application. You're required to perform at a CLB7 in all components of that language test. Also, you must have graduated in an eligible field of study if you graduated from a college or any other non-university program. All right, some of you might be thinking about permanent residency. There are a few options that are available for international students that are seeking and planning ahead for the future and wanting to stay in Canada. There are opportunities for you to discuss your plans with an RCIC here at Western International. They'll be able to discuss some, excuse me, express entry or permanent residency pathways. Awesome. Okay, so I just wanted to remind you that International Student Services here at Western, we have a bunch of different ways that you can get a hold of us. You can come see us in person during our drop-in hours between 1 to 4. You can join us online every Friday from 9:30 to 10:30. You don't need an appointment. This allows you to join from the comfort of your home. And it might be a convenient time for you to have an appointment or a check-in with one of our advisors. Our offices are open from Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. You can either give us a call or send us an email. Use those QR codes to check out the advising appointments. We are seeing students that are prospective, that are looking for some help and guidance for their study permit applications, or you might just have some questions about settling in here at Western. Be sure to check out any informative workshops and info sessions. We are doing a bunch of study permit presentations, working in Canada, making new friends and connections here in Canada. So be sure to use those QR codes to access any support that you may seeking. It's been a pleasure sharing this time with you today. Thanks for coming out, and we hope to see you soon.